Mr. Chairman, we are recording and streaming, so we can begin whenever you're ready.
Good morning and welcome to this Metro Plan Orlando MAC meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is John Dowless and I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. We also have a team of folks working to ensure this meeting runs smoothly for us in the room and those listening online. As we continue to meet in person, all committee members are required to be physically present here in Metro Plan Orlando boardroom for purposes of achieving a quorum. Staff will continue to stream our meetings online for public access. Also, please make sure you silence your phone. Mayor Sladek, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. So this morning, we'll keep our microphones muted unless you've been recognized to speak. I do ask that all committee members activate your microphones before speaking and turning them back off when you are complete. As a reminder, the microphone is turned on and off by pressing the blue button. It's located on the screen in front of you. There are 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public participating virtually who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to request to be recognized. We also accepted comments by email and phone messages before the meeting. The guidelines for the public comment are posted at metroplan.org/virtual meetings. We want this in all future meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodations to participate in the future, please contact Metro Plan Orlando. Now for an agenda overview, Mr. Trauger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. Just a couple announcements today. As you can see, we do have a new face at the table, Mr. Jonathan Scarf from the Florida Department of Transportation, District 5. He's Metro Plan Orlando's new liaison to the DOT. So you'll be hearing more from him today and at your future meetings. Also relating to DOT, and it's in your agenda packets under general information, and Mr. Aguib will be talking about it more in his presentation, is the governor's initiative moving Florida forward and what that means to some I-4 projects. So you'll hear a little bit more about that later in your agenda, but there's also a hyperlink in that general information where you can go to the state's website and learn more about each of those projects statewide. Other than that, we do have a couple changes relating to the printed agenda. The presentation from the annual report on Best Foot Forward from Miss Emily Hanna. She's under the weather today, so we're going to go ahead and move that informational presentation to your May agenda. So you'll hear from the Best Foot Forward team at your next meeting. Also, a casting change as it relates to the printed agenda. As I mentioned, Mr. Hatem Aguib from the Florida DOT will be presenting on I-4 in replace of Catalina today. So with that, we do not have any changes to the printed agenda. I was looking for someone from our communications team. I know the last time they were in, we were doing an annual report challenge, and I want you to know our citizens or our community advisory committee really knocked it out of the park, kind of tenfold, really sharing and getting that word out. So they were rewarded with a cookie earlier on at their meeting earlier in the month, but we do appreciate y'all sharing that information as well. So with that, we are ready to move forward with roll call. I'll let Ms. Goldfarb call the roll.
Ms. Goldfarb.
I'll ask all committee members to keep microphones muted until called. Please say here or present when your name is called. Anderson?
Here.
Blackwell? Davitt? Dowless?
Here.
Gerstner?
Here.
Foraker? Gardner, Guthrie,
Here.
Henson, McCann,
Here.
Ramos,
Present.
Sackett, Sladeck,
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Also, we had some folks call in for an absence. Of course, we have Mayor Anderson online, but for the moment, and because of maybe the rules, we're not sure if they apply regarding online, but there's Mayor Gardner, Mayor Henson, Mayor Anderson, and Mayor Foraker have asked for an excused absence. Do we have a motion to approve? Do we have a second? We have a first, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. Okay. We will now hear public comments on action items. Do we have people who want to speak to any of these items? If so, please use the raise hands function on your screen and press *9 on your phone keypad. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record. Please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
There are no hands raised on the virtual side, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Goldfarb. Do we have any submitted written comments?
Nothing in advance of the meeting.
All right, great. Let's go to agency partner updates. So first we'll have Mr. Jonathan Scarf with FDOT.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members. So if you turn to tab 3 in your agendas, you'll find the latest construction report from FDOT. I encourage you to go to CFL Roads if you find yourself developing a question and you want to look into it. CFL Roads is updated regularly, and you'll even be able to find like week to week new information in there. But with that being said, I would like to just address a few upcoming road closures that are going to be occurring both in Orange County. And if you're currently looking at your construction report, it's going to be project 442880 TAC 1. This is State Route 500 US 441 from State Route 429 connector to Jones Avenue. It's a resurfacing project. So upcoming beginning Sunday, March 5th through Thursday, March 9th, between 9 and 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. rather. There'll be outside and inside lane closures of northbound and southbound US 441 between Vic Road and South Central Avenue. Now, and this is to allow the contractor to continue to repave the road. Secondly, project 437634, TAC 1, State Road 551, also known as Golden Rod Road, from State Road 408 to State Road 50 rather. There's going to be ongoing intermittent nightly lane closures from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on northbound and southbound. And this is on Golden Rod Road from State Route 408 to State Route 50 to allow the contractor to move existing water main and tie into new services. So with the road closures, I'd like to move on to something that's going to be upcoming. It's going to be very important for your input, especially to this board, and it's the scoping projects that are going to be, our team is now coordinating and looking into the projects that they want to start completing in FY 26 and 27. Why this is very important is because they need to reach out to your agencies and primarily, if you think about it, we don't want to go out and scope something and redo a project or redo a road if the municipalities, the city, county has something else planned for that very route. And so that coordination is going to be very important. When the team reaches out to you, we suggest that you're proactive and working with them. And that way, whenever we actually start completing these scoping projects, we're fully coordinated and we're not going to be, or we're not going to have to redo things rather, if you will. So that's going to kind of remove the speed bumps, a little FDOT humor there, for the project. And so with that being said, that concludes my comments. And if the members have anything, I'm prepared to take questions.
Any questions? All right, let's move next. I think we have from Lynx, we have Cody Johnson.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Cody Johnson with Lynx. A very brief update for you all this morning. In terms of ridership, our average weekday ridership is sitting at 56,569 passengers per day. Year over year compared to January 2022, that's up about 22%. And kind of overall, since the COVID-19 pandemic, we're at 74% of total ridership. So slowly but surely, we're recovering from that. We actually had our highest ridership day on February 22nd. And it seems like that's a pretty common theme. Every single month, we're getting kind of those higher ridership days. So we're recovering. So moving on. An exciting piece to share with you all is actually we began construction on our new Florida Mall Superstop. We're renovating that, adding some new shelters, benches for all the buses coming in and out of the Florida Mall Superstop. But other than that, that's it for me. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, let me know.
I have a couple of questions. What was the ridership before you said 74%, but I don't know what that was.
Like the overall ridership before the pandemic, we were sitting at about 26,000 roughly per day before the COVID-19 pandemic began.
So we're about 74% of that.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Next we have from Florida Turnpike, Mr. Fine.
Good morning, committee members. For my update, I have 2 upcoming public hearings to announce. The first public hearing coming up will be for the project that will widen the Turnpike Main Line from US 192 to Osceola Parkway. It's actually 2 projects. The first project will widen from US 192 to Parton Settlement Road, and then from Parton Settlement Road to Osceola Parkway. So that public hearing, there's 2 sessions that you can attend. The virtual session is on March 27th, and then the in-person session is on March 29th. And I know this is a project of interest in the Osceola County area. And the second public hearing to announce is for the Point Siena Parkway Extension Connector. And this public hearing will be, the virtual session will be on April 25th, and then the in-person will be on April 27th. In your agenda, there's an informational handout about that project. It's also included in the Moving Florida Forward funding as a considered project. It's a major project for the region, for regional movements, for this area and also for the Polk County area. But with that being said, that is under my report, but I'll be happy to take any questions or concerns.
Any questions about the Turnpike? Thanks, sir. Okay, so we're now on our action items. We have 2 action items. The first is the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections anyone wants to note? Do I have a motion to approve? Mayor Sladek, do we have a second? Who? Oh, and we have a second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, show that adopted. Mayor Anderson, that was an aye in favor. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. All right, let's see. Now we have the approval of FDOT amendment to fiscal year 22-23 to 26-27. And I believe we have Mr. Sartorio. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Jason Sartorio, Transportation Planner with Metro Plan Orlando. This morning, I have 1 tip amendment for you. Additional information regarding this amendment is located in tab 2 of your agendas. Today's tip amendment is due to construction cost estimate increases for the Fortune Road and Simpson Road intersection improvement project in Osceola County. As I mentioned earlier, additional information regarding this is located in tab 2 of your agendas. That being said, if there aren't any questions, we are asking for your recommendation of approval of the amendment. Thank you.
Are there any questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Guthrie, and do we have a second? And second, we have a second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, please show that adopted unanimously. All right, we have three presentations this morning, and we've asked that you hold questions until the presentation ends, if possible, unless the speaker wants otherwise. Our first regarding safe streets and roads, Ms. Taylor Laurent.
Good morning. I'm very excited to bring some good news to you today. So I'm Taylor Laurent from Metro Plan Orlando. And you may have heard at the beginning of February that our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application that we submitted last year was accepted, and we were awarded $3.79 million to help us develop Vision Zero safety action plans throughout Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. So what that means is that we're going to develop 1 regional plan, 3 county plans, and 19 city or town plans, so we can promote safety throughout our entire area and really enhance the top-down and bottom-up approach that we identified in our application. So we're covering our entire roadway network for safety projects. So you'll see that we have a very similar approach that we're going to be taking as we develop these Vision Zero safety action plans, but we're going to be making sure that they're customized to our local areas. That way, ultimately, each of our jurisdictions will be eligible to apply for future implementation grant funding for discretionary grants when those NOFOs become available. I know we're all excited to get started, but there are a couple things that we need to do first. Metro Plan Orlando is currently developing a project management plan, so we can figure out exactly how we're going to do 23 Vision Zero safety action plans at the same time. And we're also working with USDOT and FHWA to be able to execute a grant agreement. So we're eligible to receive those funds, and that will serve as our notice to proceed to get work started. At the TAC meeting last Friday, we spoke with our representatives and committee members there to ask them to establish and identify a local champion or the project manager, the main point of contact who's going to be your agency's representative to work hand in hand with us to develop these Vision Zero safety action plans for each of our jurisdictions. So you'll probably see a couple emails reminding them to get us that name of that person. I just wanted to let you know that that's something we've asked your staff to do. So that's the information that I have for you today. We'll continue to provide updates as we receive additional information and work gets closer to getting started over the next several, I hope to say weeks, maybe months, we'll see. But I am happy to answer any questions that we may have now.
Any questions? I have a couple of them. What will the cities, are we going to apply? Are we going to send to you what we think falls under the grant? And then if you can maybe elaborate a little more some of the details, what types will be covered? And then will we apply to Metro Plan, or is this in conjunction with our congressman, or how will that work?
Right, so the grant's already been awarded. As part of our grant application, we did submit a proposed scope of work, which is why I have some anticipated components of the plan and kind of how they would all come together. For a qualified Vision Zero safety action plan, there are several requirements we need to meet, and the scope elements up here on the slides right now do qualify each of the plans that will be developed throughout this effort. So as we develop that project management plan, we'll be reaching out to that main point of contact, that project manager from your jurisdiction, and you're welcome to join those meetings as well to kind of make sure that that scope is customized. So it's not just a blanket plan that we're all recycling and repurposing. We want it to be focusing on the local needs and safety opportunities and projects that are important to you.
So let's say something like trying to make our sidewalks ADA compliant, would that fall under this?
I believe that would be an eligible opportunity, but that's something we can verify.
And to Taylor's point, we're gonna, we know each of your agencies has different resources, especially as it relates to staffing, transportation planning, kind of land planning in general. So as part of the project management plan that Taylor referenced, we know some of your agencies have direct representation on our TAC, and you have city engineers and planners and plan 1s, 2s, and 3s, but some don't. So we're going to be identifying those and where Metro Plan staff and our consultant team will be there to kind of help more with the rowing, knowing that you don't necessarily have the staffing to do so. But the intent is our scope and application that was selected for federal award identified kind of the core task areas, what we would be doing, kind of the vision for it all. But now it's rubber meets the roads. We won, and now it's time to act. And we need to make each plan cater to your unique network. But we're, as Taylor mentioned, there's a regional plan. It's going to make sure it's covering all the state highway facilities, all of our county plans, which will cover, county roads and their facilities. And I think what's the difference? You might ask, what's the difference between a county plan and my municipal plan? And it's really what bubbles up to the top of a priority list as it relates to safety. You may have a safety need, but that may not raise to the highest level, to regional need because of the crash rate or severity, and similarly with kind of a county level plan. But you can come out of these safety action plans with, this is Oviedo's critical safety network. These are the strategies we're going to use, and these are the projects that we're going to solve. Same thing for every municipality, but it's going to be specific to your needs, the projects and the opportunities. You mentioned sidewalk gaps. If there's sidewalk gaps along a facility that has known safety challenges, yeah, that's definitely eligible. But that's where we're going to be utilizing our consultant teams to really kind of squeeze the most opportunity out of this experience. Because as I mentioned in the past, the goal of these action plans is to make us eligible for federal construction funds. So we're going to get through this process, becomes each of our agencies will be certified to apply towards federal funds. And we'll have projects that we can point back to a plan to fund. So this is, I think I've used the analogy, kind of the key to unlocking future discretionary funds. Still a lot of uncertainty. I think we have our next webinar series with USDOT in a few weeks, more about that grant agreement. But we're doing our piece now. So once DOT says you can go, that we'll be prepared and focus with your partner.
So you're still working on some of the details with the federal government in terms of the.
Correct. Yeah,
grants?
correct. So interestingly, as of 48 hours ago, the only message we received from the federal government is congratulations, you won. Yesterday, we knew what we were going to do. We had an application. We knew the game plan, but as of 48 hours ago, we only had an email notification and a kind of the news, in case you missed it, kind of news release. Yesterday, we sat in on the first webinar, which kind of talked about schedule, expectation, roles, responsibilities, what the next 45 days and next 24 months is going to look like. But there's still a lot of questions, and a lot of them are going to get ironed out in that grant agreement. So MetroPlan is the direct recipient. We're an eligible direct recipient. We qualify, we meet all of the requirements to do that work and to procure the services. But it's all reimbursement based. So we need to kind of get all of our ducks in a row. And as part of that grant agreement, we need to have the scope of work and in the specificity to each municipality nailed down. So that's where, again, as Taylor mentioned, we're trying to establish that local champion. So once we know we need A, B, and C from each municipality, we know who to ask, who's going to be kind of our project manager. But I also acknowledge, as I mentioned earlier, we understand that, it might be your city manager, your city clerk, or maybe you in some regards, pending kind of the operation of your municipality. So, but we want to do what we can to help you and again, make this as painless as possible for each of our partners, because this is really good news for the region.
I'm very excited. One last question. Is there anything any of us need to or could do now to help speed up the process? And I understand you've got to kind of wait for the approval. We don't know when that exactly is going to happen, or do you, or what could we do in advance?
Yeah, to Taylor's point, kind of to go back, make sure the staff is kind of appointing this, even if it's kind of a loose appointment at that time, is just making sure that, we're going to be geared up and it's not to say it's going to be a real super fast moving process, but we need to make sure that, momentum isn't lost, because as we're developing that project management plan, we want to make sure that as we're developing county plans where, it makes sense and we're not, we're synergizing kind of efforts with the municipalities within those county plans. So that first step there is really that point of contact. Who is going to be our committed Safe Streets champion? Because I can't come in, my team can't come in and necessarily, tell Oviedo or tell Winter Springs or tell Maitland how to do, we need to row and work with your staffs to make it meaningful to each of your municipalities.
Great. Thank
I
you.
have a clarification, just question. So we're a small town, we don't have the staff town of Oakland. But is this gonna be reoccurring, the future funds? Because it sounds like, you know, there's priority and then it trickles down. Is this gonna reoccur? Because I know we may be at the bottom of the priority, right? We already have a specified scope. And we don't have a sidewalk gap. We just don't have sidewalks. So there's a huge gap. So we don't have the staff, so we're gonna pick a champion in our town to just reoccurring every year till we finally trickles down to our small cup? Or is it the priority always gonna take over and we'll have to figure out ourselves?
So that priority question is why we structured our application the way that we did. So with each of our jurisdictions having our own individual qualified safety action plan, it's going to be a one-time planning effort that we do as part of this grant award. So 1 regional plan, 3 county plans, 19 city and town plans. Everybody's getting a plan. I feel like Oprah, I can say that today. Everybody gets a safety plan. Yes, definitely. So once we all have that qualified safety action plan, we are all then eligible individually, or maybe potentially a combined application in the future to apply for discretionary implementation grant funding. So it's not going to be guaranteed moving things forward, but this is the key to unlock that future opportunity for additional funds for design and construction.
So one last question then, or maybe we'll see. Do you have an actual application that we could review to help us get on the page? So we're on the same page. Anything in advance right now, I would welcome, so that we're not just kind of interrupting.
Right, we can share the application that we submitted last September, and that's going to be the basis of what we're building our project management plan off of. We can share that.
Or is that going to be too big to kind of review? Is that
We tried to keep it short.
Yeah, we can try to keep it short. And these these anticipated components are kind of the core, we'll call it the scope, task, or key activities. Because what we have and what we've submitted to, as part of the application that we were successful was basically providing, that $3.8 million is to implement, a regional and localized plans in doing each of these tasks at a local, or excuse me, at a regional county. County has different ordinances. You have different ordinances and policies. So it's looking at each of those to squeeze to get the safest system out of it. So it's a policy review to look at institutional opportunities for improving safety across the board. But then it also gets into the projects, kind of let's vie for money to solve for safety. And absent these plans, we are ineligible as a region, and as municipalities ineligible as well. So again, this is kind of again, unlocking future potential, no guarantees, but what we've heard is the feds are working to those who have received the planning side, as you go into implementation, it gives you a stronger application as you're vying for those construction funds in down the line. But our goal is to get everyone, at least in the next 20 to 24 months, certified, eligible. A lot of that's going to be based on when the federal government says we can go. They give us that notice to proceed, and a lot of that's based on that grant agreement. But we're expecting that to be, in the next 40 to 60 days, fingers crossed. But we can share the scope as well, and Taylor, myself, or other staff, can make ourselves available. We want to make sure your expectations are managed, especially as we're going forward with this, what it means, what it's not. We're not building anything, we're not buying shovels. This is planning, this is identifying opportunities, solutions, so then we can buy for those funds in the future. My team's also presented on other long range plans and other modal studies. Eric's going to talk a little bit about retiming later, but he presented on or the modal master plan, the TISMO master plan was presented on. These plans will also feed into those documents. So while it's going to open up discretionary funds, it may also feed into our other long-range planning documents, which have other formula-based funds as well. So this is our way of really just identifying safety across the board holistically, comprehensively, and more than anything, making ourselves eligible for those discretionary federal funds for the future.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. All right, we have the traffic signal retiming program, Mr. Hill, Eric Hill.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee members. My name is Eric Hill. I am the Director of Transportation Systems Management and Operations here at Metro Plan Orlando. This is the first time I am speaking to this committee. I've been an employee here for 25 years. The faces have changed. And there's some significant relevance between myself and this committee. The first is that I assembled this group when it first started. So I'm part of the reason why you're here today. The second is this committee was the first committee to support the whole notion of using information communication technology to improve our mobility. One of the products of that effort is the signal retiming program. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers the colorful Mayor Vandergrift, city of Ocoee, but I rode shotgun with him in assembling this committee. So this project or this program, again, is a byproduct of this committee's effort. So we've been doing signal retiming now for about 12 years. And it's been one of the programs that we do here that has been well received by pretty much every stakeholder group that we have. The engineers, the elected officials, and certainly the citizens ourselves that use the roadways. So I'm going to be reporting on the results from our program from last year. We are currently doing retiming this year again. And the way it works is every year we go to the jurisdictions and we say, which quarters do you want retimed, or which intersections do you want retimed? So why do we do it? To improve traffic flow, reduce delay, reduce speeding. And then that last one is looking at how we can improve bicycle pedestrian safety. We retimed 17 corridors this year or last year, including 7 intersections. So in Orange County, these are the corridors in the intersections that we retimed. And these are the ones we did in Seminole County. Now, this past year, we didn't receive any submissions from Osceola County. So we don't have any to report out for them. There's a history here. We first started out doing the retiming program, which was called a floating car technique. And basically someone rode in a car along the corridor with a stopwatch. And that's how they recorded the travel times. And with technology, Bluetooth technology, we moved to that point. And now there's connected vehicles. So vehicles, models 2015 and later, have that technology in them. So we're able to use the cars themselves to track travel times. Before we started doing this, we did some testing compared to our older techniques to make sure that we were within range with what has been done in the past, and we have. We use 2 measures to do that. So what we look at is travel time, reliability, progression along the corridors, impacts on emissions, fuel savings, intersection delay, and pedestrian. In terms of travel.
Could I ask a quick question from the last slide? What is the difference between HCM, like I don't know HCM and CB
Highway
means?
capacity management methodology and connected vehicles.
Okay, thank
So-
you. So at least I know, we can ask the rest later.
Okay,
I like the pedestrian delay being a factor.
okay. So in terms of travel times, 59% of the cars have shorter travel times. 94% of the corridors have a reliability in terms of travel time before and after. We had an increase in emissions, an increase in fuel consumption, and, spoiler alert, I will explain why we had those increases. 35% of the corridors now have motor stopping fewer times. 29% of the individual intersections had less intersection delay. And 15% of intersections had less pedestrian delay during peak periods. Now, the one measurement that we always refer to is the benefit cost. we make this investment, what kind of benefits do we get back? And so that's been the one measurement that everyone kind of like focuses. There was an increase in travel time in terms of hours. The present value, net present value is $5.9 million. Total cost of the project is roughly 1 million to 1.5 million. As I mentioned, we don't have Osceola County in this year's. And so that's why it's 1 million, but typically it's around 1.5 million that we spend on this program. Now, I mentioned that this has been a well-received program, but this is the first time we've had a BC ratio, a negative BC ratio. Typically we have positive BC ratios. And there's a reason for that. Historically, this is the way our BC ratios have looked. Now, at the beginning, when we started, it looked great because we weren't doing this kind of program. And so once we started doing it, we started to realize the benefits. The other thing is we started out with the notion of if we retime one corridor, in 3 years, we'll go back and we'll retime that corridor again. But things change. People change their trip making. The story I like to use is Sunrail. Before Sunrail, all trips went north-south, pretty much. Now with the stations, a lot of trips go east-west. So there are things that happen, the pandemic. I mean, a lot of that factors into why we get these types of ratios. One of them is we wanted to improve pedestrian and student safety near schools. So here are 4 corridors that have schools on them. And if we retime the signals so that we can allow students to cross the street, to just accommodate their trip making, to parents, that creates more delay on the roadway. I think it's kind of hard to argue that you'd rather have cars travel fast, get through, rather than have pedestrians and students have access to their schools. So why we had this negative BC ratio? The pandemic. When we collected the before data, it was towards the end of the pandemic. Before data, before it was at the end of the pandemic. The after data was collected once everyone started going back to their office. So we had an increase, more increase in terms of trip making afterwards. I mentioned the fact that schools played into this. We also increased pedestrian crossing times. So as you increase the amount of times that pedestrians have, the vehicles are going to have to wait and they're going to have to travel slower. So again, it's kind of hard to argue against that, I think. And one of the things we typically hear a lot of is complaints by citizens, and that's been down. So we like to believe that is a positive point. So it's a balancing act. Do we want to increase speeds? Do we want to improve pedestrian safety and comfort? Do we want better progressions? Do we want better reliability? We try to achieve all this through the signal retiming program. I mentioned that negative BC ratio. I believe that as we do this, as we're doing our program this year, that we'll have positive BC ratios. Again, Osceola County wasn't included in the last year's, but they are part of this year's. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation, and I will address any questions. One more thing, there should be an infographic in your agenda. Okay, great.
Any questions?
Question, not a serious question, but just like I-4 has like a fast pass type of thing, with the technology advancing, will there ever be like a fast pass green lights for like Commissioner Ramos and I could just bob and we'll pay extra and help the.
Right, sure. I don't know if that's equitable, number one, but, and I'll just share this with you, that there has been a lot, we talk about technology and connected vehicles. There's the theory that at some point, we will be able to eliminate traffic signals. And the vehicles will negotiate intersections. It's a theory, but certainly we believe you'll be one of those vehicles. To negotiate. Just like, you know, if you and I run into each other on the street, you know, we usually negotiate which way we're gonna go. Vehicles will be able to do that. That's, it's theory, but it's theory, but.
I have, on your slide, I think it was slide 3 of Seminole County. You were showing some areas of. Right, that number 1, where is that at? One in
That is 1792.
1792, is that O'Brien maybe?
Well, that's the entire roadway. You can ask them about that intersection number.
Is
one.
that, yeah, I didn't know if you knew.
That's pointing to that corridor, that blue line.
Oh, okay,
It's not an intersection.
all right.
It's pretty close to O'Brien.
Yeah, yeah, because I know how that light at O'Brien is, yeah, so. That's kind of why I was wondering, I was like, I know the timing of that one. My other question is, so, and I think we've all dealt with this one is, you know, the queues. How do you know where to time so that the whole queue will empty on, say, a left or right turn? Or a left turn?
Demand, how much demand, how much.
Right,
Demand, and that's.
I mean, on the timing aspect of it, and to say that it's 20 seconds, that light has to.
It would vary depending on time of day. During peak hours of the day, you're gonna have more time for that left turn, because in theory, you're gonna have more demand.
You do that by the GPS to say, you know, it's back in the back of the light
Yeah,
and you
that's
wait for it to
part of-
turn.
And that's part of what they do with the retiming. They look at turning movements. And so left turns, they would collect that before and then adjust the signal timing to address any demand and whatever that demand is. And keep in mind that that changes, that varies. It's not consistent. But that's what they try and do. And then afterwards, they collect the data and see if that has been a positive impact. So
Okay.
that those left turns can clear.
So one thing we also talked about here was, I guess we'll call them smart lights. Well, if somebody darts out in front of a stoplight on their bike or walk, I think we were talking about, you know, they'll change. Do we see that in the near future, any kind of smart light that would, you know, be have a safety like
So they've been
flash to it?
demonstrating that technology over in Polk County. They have tested that technology. So that if there's a red light and a car runs a red light, that the vehicles that have the green, that light will change. They've tested that. I know in Polk County, they tested that. We haven't done any tests in this region. But that whole notion of safety, I think it's now being applied more with pedestrians and bicyclists. And we, Metro Plan Orlando, along with District 5, University of Central Florida, Orange County, we won a grant. It's been now 5 years for almost $10 million to look at that type of strategy. And we tested it out at University of Central Florida on Alafaya Trail, where students can download an app on their phone or wearable. And as they enter or approach an intersection, the vehicles, connected vehicles, can detect a pedestrian. And the pedestrian can detect a vehicle because most students are looking at their phone, right? Bicyclists probably trying to do the same thing. So how can we create that alert so that there's, notice that potential conflict? So we've done it over there, and the next we're going to look at doing it over in the Pine Hills area because the demographics are different. And there's more, certainly, I think probably pedestrian usage, probably about the same, but the demographics are different. And so how does it work in a different environment? So that's a long answer to, I think, your question, but.
No, it was a good answer. In fact, I could see it working a lot better with pedestrian and bicyclers than a car running through a light. I mean, you don't really have time to react to that with the light changing and everything, but with the pedestrian going out,
that's 10, 20 seconds that it'll change. So, but that was a great answer. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I got a quick question. as
Oh,
well.
go ahead, Mayor.
Is there any inclination to shift towards roundabouts? Because I'm looking at this and it's 59% have shorter times, but that means that you just spent all this money. The cost benefit analysis is not looking really good. What is that, 41% still or worse?
Yeah, it's, again, this I think is an anomaly. I think, just based on my history with this and what I see in the future. In terms of roundabouts, I mean, that's, I think that's more of a jurisdictional call. If you want to have a roundabout instead of traffic signal or four-way stops, that's more of a safety analysis, probably something that can come through the Safe Streets for All grant that Taylor just presented. That could be one of the strategies that your jurisdiction looks at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hill.
Chairman, I think you have one more question.
Oh, yes, sir.
How does the retiming work at railroad crossings? In particular, when rail comes through, the light resets, and then it seems like you got to go through a full cycle, especially during peak hours.
Yeah, that happens, and I think we have one challenge, I think is Ronald Reagan Boulevard. And I think, let's see, 434, well, that's a challenge. And we're trying to figure out the best way to resolve that. Because the way they're trying to resolve it now, I think is, it doesn't reflect innovation, and it doesn't reflect how I think prepared we are for rail service and how that disrupts the signal timing, but traffic. Now, that is an issue, it's a challenge. I think there are some crossings that work well with the traffic lights. The one that's right out here works well. And in some other cases, it doesn't. But I know that one, Ronald Reagan Boulevard, is a challenge. And my sense is that we're not the only community that has that challenge from around the country or historic. And so I think the opportunity is to look at other areas around the country and how they dealt with that, how they resolved it. Because again, it's not new, I mean, at all. So it's just a matter of just finding the technique, the type of timing plans that can resolve that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. We appreciate it. All right, next we have Beyond the Ultimate project of I-4 Beyond the Ultimate project update with Mr. Hugui.
Yes, thank you. All right, good morning, Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present today on I-4 Beyond the Ultimate. My name is Hatem Agib with the Department of Transportation. For today's presentation, we'll talk about what projects we have now, what we're working on. Also, we'll talk about what's coming up next for I-4, and we'll touch on the governor's announcement with the Moving Forward initiative. Starting with the background, if you look at the screen exhibit to the left in the middle, you can see I-4 Ultimate recently construction complete with the express lanes open in both directions. North of I-4 Ultimate, we call that Beyond the Ultimate North, comprises of two sections, section 3 and 4, Seminole and Volusia counties. South of I-4 Ultimate, we call that Beyond the Ultimate South. We have 4 segments in Orange, Osceola, and Polk counties. Those Beyond the Ultimate segments, biggest challenge was always the funding. Some of these segments are hundreds of millions of dollars each, and in some instances over $1 billion each. So while we continue to look for opportunities for funding for those Beyond the Ultimate segments, we use the funding that we have available and looked at the needs that we have, and we came up with a phased approach or a near-term improvements, if you will, based on the funding we have. So for the next couple of slides, we'll cover those near-term improvement projects. Starting with projects within Orange County, we have 4 projects that are funded for construction. Starting from the top, we have I-4 at Sand Lake Road Interchange Improvement Project. The project recently awarded for construction. It's a design build. We expect construction to start next month. The project is improving Sand Lake Road. We have improvements on Turkey Lake Road as well as on I-4 itself. Second project from the top, we have the 528 ramp widening. So if you're traveling on I-4 from the downtown area and you're taking that 528 ramp towards iDrive or the airport, currently it's a single lane. So this project will go ahead and widen that to 2 lanes based on traffic projections that shows, that ramp will be backing up without that widening. The project is in design as we speak. We expect that to go to construction this summer. Third project from the top, we have I-4 at Darrell Carter Parkway interchange. We're building a new interchange at the Darrell Carter Parkway. The project was awarded last year and construction is ongoing as we speak. Finally, the project at the bottom, that's I-4 at 535 interchange improvements. We are improving the western portion of 535 interchange. The project is in active procurement. It's a design build. We expect that to go into construction this summer as well. In addition to those 4 projects, we're building a single express lane in the westbound direction. Part of these projects is just broken out based on locations. So piece will be built, with Sand Lake Road interchange, piece will be built with Darrell Carter, and then piece will be built with 535. This single express lane in the westbound direction will pick up the traffic from I-4 Ultimate. If you're traveling on I-4 Ultimate express lanes in the westbound direction, you'll continue in that single lane, and it goes all the way past 536. So that's kind of the limits of that westbound express lane. Moving into Osceola County, recently we completed construction of the Champions Gate DDI with cooperation with Osceola County. Project complete and open to traffic. Project number 2 is the aux lane. We're building an auxiliary lane in each direction from Champions Gate to 429. The project is in construction as we speak. We expect that the construction to be complete towards the end of this year. We also have milling and resurfacings along I-4 within Osceola County. Those milling and resurfacings are in design as we speak. Now, moving on to what's next. So while we're pushing these projects out for design and constructions, the one I just talked about, we continue to look for what's next, right? So if the funding becomes available, we know where to go next with I-4. So as far as the looking at that, we looked at beyond the ultimate north and south. We looked at the traffic. We want to target the high congestion areas on I-4. So for the purpose of this presentation, we put together heat maps. The heat maps show speeds along I-4. Those were data provided by a Federal Highway National Data Set, collects information from a fleet of probe vehicles that's equipped with mobile devices. Using that data, you can the time and the location of those vehicles and hence the speed. If you know the speed, then you can figure out the congestion areas. So moving on to the heat maps, we're starting with the westbound direction. Really, if you look at the legend on the screen, the dark red really is just from 0 to 10 miles per hour, right? So that's kind of the legend, what's indicating. What you see on the screen here is in 2022, on a weekday between 3 and 7 p.m., you can see within Osceola County, the speeds is almost from 0 to 10 miles per hour, which indicates severe congestion. Next slide. This is 2022 Friday between 3 to 7. Same thing if based on the data available, you can see the congested segment is still Osceola County with speeds between 0 and 10 miles per hour. A weekend between 3 and 7, same thing, Osceola County. And really, if any of you drive down there, you can relate to this congestion. It's really congested down there. For the eastbound direction, there is some slowdowns in Osceola County. We're showing some slower speeds in Orange County between 3 to 7 for weekday, for Friday, and also for the weekend. So kind of that kind of helps identify what are the high congestion areas along I-4. The data tell us that we need improvements, along I-4, south and north, but the most congestion segment is the Osceola County segment. So that'll be our focus area. We're also going to look at the eastbound direction in Orange County. As far as project development, so moving on to what you see on the screen is just the I-4 within Osceola County, about 8 miles. So that's our focus area. Since we've done the PD&E, now we have updated policies. There are new parameters that we looked at that was not available back then. That will help us just improve that BTU segment, maybe reduce the cost for construction. We also had the opportunity to get feedback from industry on sizes and delivery methods for big projects like that. Really evaluation approach, just maintain the purpose and need from the PD&E. We stayed, we're going to stay within the right-of-way identified back in the PD&E. We're not, we don't want to go purchase new right-of-way. We want to get the same traffic improvements with the new concept, look for cost saving opportunities, and continue that approach. So what we're proposing in Osceola County, as you see on the screen, basically 2 express lanes in each direction. We're proposing those express lanes to be buffer separated compared to what you see today in I-4 Ultimate. You see that barrier separation. The buffer separation reduces the footprint of those express lanes and enhanced cost savings come with that. Other benefits, just easier for construction, easier for emergency operations. It's been used nationwide, and also it's been used within the state of Florida. So that's kind of what we're proposing within Osceola County. 2 express lanes in each direction, buffer separated. We'll have aux lanes as applicable. And if you can see that we're preserving the rail corridor in the median of I-4 within Osceola County. This is just showing the project limits and the interchanges that will be part of that Osceola County segment. So Osceola County, we'll go ahead with the improvements to Osceola County, but you need to tie in, like, how do you tie in north and south of that, right? So you're building 2 express lanes in each direction. You need that transition. So south of Osceola County, we're going to continue those express lanes. So 2 express lanes in each direction into Polk County. So those 2 express lanes will continue down there. North of Osceola County, we are proposing a single lane express lane in the eastbound direction. So you transition from 2 to 1, and then that express lane continues into Orange County and connects to I-4 Ultimate. Basically, that's kind of the goal. Here, just showing the limits of the Osceola County project and the Polk County, and then that eastbound express lane I talked about. The rendering on the screen here is the proposed I-4 in Orange County. The westbound express lane that I talked about that earlier, that's in construction, part of multiple projects as we speak. What's being proposed here is the eastbound single lane express lane that connects from Osceola County all the way to I-4 Ultimate. So that's kind of what we're proposing. We're preserving the rail corridor within Orange County east of I-4 in this situation. Another project that's coming into play is the Poinciana Parkway Extension Connector. As was mentioned earlier in this meeting, the project is a Turnpike project. It's an interchange on I-4, so we are coordinating with Turnpike extensively on that. As far as next steps, we'll continue community and stakeholders engagement. We'll continue the partnership and coordination with Turnpike on the Poinciana Parkway Extension Connector, with District 1 on I-4, Polk County. We'll continue coordination with Osceola County on the Old Lake Wilson Road, Brightline. We're gonna continue to look for the funding. I'm gonna touch on the funding with the moving Florida Forward slides coming up next. We also, of course, coordination with Central Office and Federal Highway. So moving into the governor's announcement on January 30th, there was announcement by the governor with the Moving Florida Forward Infrastructure Initiative about $7 billion to accelerate 20 projects across the state of Florida. Those 7 billion, 4 billion of them are from general revenue funding, and then the other 3 will be using innovative transportation financing options. I think there's a video in the next slide. All right, it's very exciting. I think it's, we don't know if we ever gotten that amount of funding all at once, so that's very, very exciting. And we expect that's gonna help a lot the region, travelers, tourists, locals, everyone. So very exciting. What you see on the screen here is the map showing those 20 projects that were announced part of the Moving Florida Forward initiative. If you look at the one in the middle, that's kind of the Central Florida area, projects 12, 13, and 16. I'll talk about them very quick in the next couple of slides. Project number 12 is the I-4 within Osceola County, about $1.45 billion, construction year 2024. Project number 16 is I-4 within Polk County, about $635 million, construction year 2027. Poinciana Parkway Extension Connector. It's the Poinciana Parkway interchange at I-4, about $1.3 billion, construction year 2027. All this Moving Florida Forward information is available on the website if you search for Moving Florida Forward. One thing I want to point out is, it has to pass legislation first before we get the funding. So although it's announced, we don't have the funding as of now, but once it passes legislation, then the funding becomes available. Last slide I have is, again, the 20 projects that are part of the Moving Florida Forward. Again, it's on the website, it's publicly available. And with that,
I think all of us have been stopped in Lakeland within 2 miles an hour. Is that going to be a express lane, or is that just going to be 3 additional lanes? Like general lanes?
you're talking about Lakeland?
Yes.
So that's really in District 1. I'm not sure what, we can definitely reach out to our folks in District 1 and get you more information. Yeah. So yeah, you see the Polk County segment that's right adjacent to Osceola County just ends at US 27. So the Lakeland segment, it's on there, but that's further south. So yeah. Okay, any questions?
I have one question. How did, on the heat map, when you're collecting all the data, is that something that y'all collect continually with your cameras and the different monitoring systems, or was that a study?
It's a FHWA national data set. So it's a national data set that's made available to states and local transportation agencies. It uses data collected from mobile devices through cell towers. So it can tell the vehicle's time and location, and then you can calculate the speed based of that. So it's not something that Department of Transportation does, but we have access to that.
Is that accessible to most any, is it only on federal highways or what about state roads and stuff?
I can get you more information on that. Yeah, I don't have the answer.
If I can
but-
answer that one. So if you recall my presentation last month about travel time reliability and our federal performance measures and how we measure system level performance, the data that he visualized on I-4 is the granular data that we summarize at a high level. And that data is available for the interstate highway system and for the state highway system only. And it uses what's called INRIX data. And what he referred to is the National Performance Data, or NPMRDS. It's the National Performance Measurement Research Database. And it's what USDOT prepares for all federal performance management across the United States. So it's a consistent data network with high data resolution that's used by all state DOTs. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Say again?
I have, that it might, eventually one day it may grow down to the local level where it may continue to grow it.
Yeah, and if I can, I started just to provide more context on that. So the reliability data that he's talking about, it's funded by the federal government. So it focuses on what's called the federal aid network. So that's why it's the interstate highway system and the state highway system. It's where we can put our federal funds. But there's also MetroPlan Orlando also has a reliability monitoring process. And we use what's called streetlight data. It's another commercially available data set that has the similar congestion delay. And we've used that in support of a lot of analyses. We're actually helping Mayor Sladek with some work in Oviedo in the Lake Hayes area, which I'll follow up with you on, which utilizes that data. So there is a way to provide full hierarchy, kind of full network. It's just it's funded by the feds because it's focused on the federal aid network. But because reliability is a critical objective to MetroPlan Orlando, we have acquired the similar data so we can get that for every facility in our 3-county area.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah. I guess 2 questions. Could you kind of talk on what these 3 general lanes would look like? Is it 1 more lane on the east-west side? And then what is 3 general lanes? I think I saw that in there, something like the,
Yeah, so if excuse me, if you look at the rendering, so that's kind of the typical section, if you will. So you'll have your 3 general use lanes, so 3 lanes in each direction, which you have out there now. We're adding 2 express lanes in each direction, right? So you'll have 3 plus 2, so that's 5 lanes in each direction. In addition to that, we'll have aux lanes. Aux lanes basically picks up the traffic. If you're coming off of interchange, you have to stay in the lane before you can merge into the traffic, into the general use traffic. So we'll have those as well. So that's kind of the layout.
knowing what you know now, is there any thought of the emergency lanes in these express lanes being a little bit wider or bigger? I don't even know if we can, but has that been any consideration? Seeing what I see now, and having experienced it myself, having a flat tire in the express lane, it's pretty scary. You don't want to even try to get out of your car.
Yeah.
So has there been any thought of widening these areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have inside shoulders where, along the express lanes. In addition, we have like emergency pullover areas will be provided as well. So every, certain amount of distance, you'll have a pullover area for emergencies, to be used. So.
And that'll be like a little area that's wider.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be slightly wider than your typical shoulder for emergency situation. So that's going to be provided part of the express lanes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And what are we looking for projections of start and end date?
So of course, the announcement just came out. We're waiting on the funding, and at the same time, we're looking at the delivery mechanisms. So how you're gonna deliver this big project? We're also looking at schedules and timelines. The funding based on the governor's plan is in 2024 for start. So that's an information that we have now. Which piece will start or where, we're still working on that, and I'm pretty sure once we have more information, we're coming back, for to present that to stakeholders and everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would both the north and south start at the same time, or would you tackle one and then go to the next?
That's part of what we're looking at now, what makes more sense from a constructability standpoint and, based on industry feedback, so we're looking at different variables to make that determination. So as of now, we don't have the answer, but we're working on it. Yeah, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, we are now on, let's see where I've got to come back, find my place. Tab 3, general information. The next Metro Plan Orlando board, the governing board meeting is going to be next week here, Wednesday, March 8th in this room. We do not have an April meeting. Our next MAC meeting will be May 4th. Mark your calendars. At this time, do we have any committee members who want to make any final comments? Seeing no hands raised.
Mayor Dallas, Mr. Chair, before we move to public comment, I did have one announcement relating to upcoming meetings, and you will see in your upcoming meetings on March 15th, we have our federal certification field visit. This is where the Federal Highway Administration members from the US DOT and Federal Transit Administration come into, they're auditing our process right now. But this is where they kind of come in for the day. I call it a field trip because they're coming in from Atlanta in Tallahassee, and they audit our process. And as part of that, there's a public meeting where we're taking public comment on Metro Plan Orlando's regional transportation planning process. I know our communications team did a general push to all of our partners. I know I'll be reaching out to some of you, but I want to invite each of you, if you have the time available. That public meeting does start at 9 a.m. There is a virtual option, so you can dial in and provide feedback. And there's also after the event public comment period, where if you'd like to provide feedback in writing, we would also appreciate those that information. So more to come, but I wanted to at least put that on your radar for March 15th. But I'll be reaching out to you guys with more information on that.
Very good. Any members of the public wish to comment, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll unmute your mic. After you recognize, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
There are no hands raised on the virtual side, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Goldfarb. All right, with that, we motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Show that. Thank you, everyone.